Hi, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, president of Trident Concepts, and today I'd like to talk to you about low light as it relates to everyday carry. So the first thing we talk about is, what does low light really mean? And the way that I define that is the moment that you can no longer discern color, you're pretty much in low light. The moment that your eyesight can no longer see color, you're almost blind. I mean, according to how they interpret blindness, you very well could be actually blind at that moment. So what does that mean? That means that we're going to need some sort of artificial light to help us see the details in order for us to be able to make good choices, right? The last thing we want to do is shoot at something that we can't positively identify, or fail to shoot at something that we should have because we weren't able to identify it. So let's talk a little bit about types of lights and what we want to be thinking about for lights. First, when it comes to concealed carry, you're going to probably use a handheld white light way more than a weapon mounted light. So there's that choice. Do I want to carry a firearm that has a weapon mounted light on it? And if you do, that's fine, that's great, no problems. You're adding weight, you're adding bulk, and you're reducing the holster options that you have available. If you're going to carry a weapon mounted light, you still have to carry a handheld flashlight. And everybody gets wrapped around the axle with this, but the reality is that you may not be justified in drawing your gun to use your light, but you have no reason that you can't draw your light to help identify a target. So there's a major difference, not just philosophically, but legally, that you need to understand. All right, so I'm not opposed to a weapon mounted light, I just find it to be unnecessary when you tally up all those other issues that go along with it. So let's then talk about a handheld light. What would I be using a handheld light for? Well, not just from a tactical setting. So you got to kind of step away from that, because while you, yes, could be using it in a tactical setting, you're more than likely going to be using it in an everyday setting. And I mean every day, to do all the things that we would like to be able to do with a light. Everything from taking the trash out to walking a dog, looking for your lost keys, helping to signal a motorist, whatever the case might be, you're going to probably use a flashlight more as a utility tool than as a tactical tool. So that means that when you are looking to select a light, you want to think about, okay, well, can I use this in an everyday setting? So here's a collection of lights. I usually take these lights anytime there's a low light component to any of our training classes, and it just gives people a different perspective. I'm not going to go through each one of these because that would take a long time, but what I will say is that there is decades of evolution of technology here. And now what has happened is that we have put technology in the hands of the average everyday carrier. Right? So the last light that I have to talk about really is just going to be a light that at a price point of $99 is really hard not to carry. And that's the Surefire stiletto light there. So when we're using a light in everyday carry, what am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for something that is small and compact and easy to carry. Because if I have some of these larger frame lights, yes, they may have some features that are improved or better than some of the other ones, but because of their size and their weight and their bulk, I don't carry them. So it really doesn't matter what those features were. I'm not going to get to use them because I'm not going to take it with me on an everyday basis. So I look for size, and you can see how the lights there's some smaller versions of them. Those smaller versions are more likely to be carried. The next thing from there is going to be the output. How much light am I actually getting for that particular size? And obviously, as you go down in size, you're going to lose some brightness, some lumens, if you will. However, what I tell people is that what's a minimum break-even point? Man, a lot of that is going to be dictated by your pocketbook. How much can you afford? Because the brighter the light, the more expensive the light's going to be. And so what I recommend is that at a minimum, 120 lumens is what you should be looking at, because that's priced at a decent level to where the average person can afford that. There's several different features, several different lights, several different companies that produce a light that's right at that 120 lumen that make it very valuable for the average person. And then what happens is that you realize, you know what, this is a good light. I've gained maximum value from this light. I need to move on to the next one. And that's great. I love that. The next thing we talk about is how the beam is projected. So this gets into theory, tactical theory about what do I want? Do I want a very bright hot spot? Do I want a more diffused beam? And I will tell you that from an everyday utility point of view, I prefer more of a diffused beam. I want that beam to have great throw. So I want it to have a wide surface area as opposed to very, very bright center point. And that's, again, personal preference from a utility point of view. In a tactical setting, do I want that really, really hot spot in the middle? Sure, of course I do. But with most of these beams that are projecting wide splash, I still get a very bright hot spot. It's just more diffused. So that's something that you want to think about. The other things that we talk about is user interface. Nowadays, the tail cap is the way to go, and it's much easier to work in a utility and then transition to the tactical setting. So that is one component that I do say that you need to give consideration to. If I am going to use this in a tactical setting, how am I going to activate that light? And the most common and easiest, most efficient method is through the tail cap. So the last thing we talk about is, how do I carry this thing? And there's a lot of ways. You can stuff it all the way in your pocket. You can put it in a pouch. I think the most common method that you're going to see is to clip it to a pocket. So when you're looking for a light, that would be the last thing that you want to look for. All right, there's a lot of other little details, but that should get the average person moving on how to select a good light. All right, I'm Jeff Gonzalez. If you have questions or comments, please post them down below. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, take care and stay safe.